Okay, hey. So I'm going to do a demonstration of my the color charts I recommend all my students do. Um, it's can take a little time, but it's pretty basic. Um, I uh, I start with a smaller sheet of watercolor paper. This is an eighth sheet, so a full sheet's 22 by 30 inches, and this one's just folded down to where it's just an eighth of that. I recommend people you get full sheets. It's a lot more cost efficient, um, and then you could just tape it to a board like I have. So for this, I'm gonna draw. I'm gonna draw these in. This is a 1 centimeter square. I just made 5 of them, and I put another one here. You'll see. So what I do is I just trace it out, uh, with the pencil. And now that I have that, I can switch it over one and line it up. And you're gonna want 5 for each color. I'm going to use 3 colors. That's what I recommend people do, is just use 3 colors when they're starting. It's a lot easier to try to match colors and mix colors with just 3 as opposed to 15 or 20. It can be really overwhelming. I mean, watercolor is pretty challenging as it is. So limiting how many factors you have to deal with. And you can always bring more colors in later, but just starting out, you just want to get a feel for what your colors can do, because every color is going to be different, even colors from different manufacturers sometimes. Quinacridone gold, you get a lot of different golds from different manufacturers. Not to say they're all bad, but they're just going to mix differently. They have different properties. Um, let's see, how am I doing? I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. I need 3 more. Looks like I'll have just enough paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a line for each solid color, for each main color, like just red, green, I'm sorry, red, yellow, blue. That's my main colors. And then I'll show you how I mix those. Oh, I ran out of space. I have a little narrow section. That's okay. That's where the main color is going to go. So right here I'm going to have red. Now I like to label what I'm going to use. So this is, get a sharper pencil here. Somewhere. There we go. This is QOR, Quinacridone, Magenta. So I'm going to put that one there. The next one's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Daniel Smith, French, Ultramarine blue. That one's going to go there. And finally, a third one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is QOR again. I like these paints. They're made by Golden. This is Nickel Azo Yellow, which I really like. All right, and then back over, this is also going to be the magenta. You can see why I don't need a full row here, because it's going to be the same color as this, but it just helps balance. So I'm going to use those 3 colors here, and put my pencil away. And then I have this little tray here. I like these ceramic trays, they're quite nice. I put my main colors here. And over here. And I do like to use liquid watercolors. I've had a lot of sets before I started getting the ones in the tube, and they're okay, but they don't activate very well. They don't get as dark, whereas even when these dry, they still activate, especially the nicer quality ones like Daniel Smith, QOR, things like that. They activate well, and the colors are still quite rich. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet my brush. I'm just going to use a straight from the tube here. I want it. So there's five different consistencies of paint, according to Joseph Zabukovic. I believe is how you say his name. Could be very wrong. But he says there's five. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this one at the same time. Five different consistencies. There's butter, which is straight out of the tube, where it's like a butter consistency. There's heavy cream. There's milk, coffee, and tea. So that's one way to think about the consistencies of the paint. Is that way. So we're gonna get to like a cream consistency, which is still pretty thick and heavy. So I'm just adding a bit of water to it. Still pretty thick. Not quite as dark as the. I can even make that a little thicker. My brush was a bit wet. This brush, fine. It's hard to pick up paint with. You really want nice and thick, that first one. And I dry the brush off because it's going to be a lot from here on out. So I want to water it down. This is the milk consistency. So think about milk. You know, kind of, it's not translucent. When you're thinking about it, it's like how it moves on the actual palette here. Next is coffee. So we want almost like a, we're getting close to our transparency. So I don't know if you've ever painted with coffee or anything. It's very translucent. And then finally, you can even just add a bit of water after you. I wipe my brush with the paper towel. As you can see, it's pretty, but it still works after it dries. I just add a bit of water, and that's going to get your tea consistency. So you have the five different. That's even a little bit too dark. I'm going to pull a bit of that out. There we go. So you have your five different. So when you know someone asks like, how do you paint pink? You know, in watercolor, you don't add white. You just add water. So it goes from red down to pink. All right. So I'm gonna. Next is the Ultramarine blue. So I'm gonna do that next, just so we have a place we can go. See how like gummy that is? It's pretty cool. I'm just gonna put that right in here. It's almost like it's too hard to like push around. And to be honest, this might be a bit too much because it's never gonna dry. I mean, it'll dry, but it'll always be kind of tacky. So I might pull a bit of that out because I don't want it to be too thick. Yeah, some of these the binder, they use honey, so it can be activated forever. All right, that's pretty rough looking, but you get the idea. And then kind of the same thing. So we're going for cream. So it's like that, it's just movable, almost the same darkness. And then add a bit of water. And you can kind of see where this is going here. And then a bit more water, get that nice blue, light blue. I could even take a bit out of here. All right, so that's the blues. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my violet. That's a dull pencil, but all right. So how to do that? You want to take your red straight out of the tube if you can, and then take your blue also straight out of the tube. And what you're going to do is, let me move this so you can see it. Get the light on there. You want to mix it up to where you can't tell if there's too much blue or too much red. You know what I mean? So I'm looking at that. It's pretty purple right there. It looks a little bit on the red side. to me. I'm gonna just a touch of blue there. See how that looks. The ceramic is nice because you can push it around and you can see, you can see how thin it is. So I'm looking at it, and that's pretty good, I think. It's kind of right in the middle. So I'm gonna use that. Just really put that in here. See how dark that is? Okay, and then from there, it's just adding a bit of water to it. Okay, and then a bit more water. You can see it's getting nice and transparent here. A dry brush off. Into that milk consistency. Dry the brush, and then go real thin. Oops, that's still not thin enough. All right, that's pretty dark, but you get the idea. You can even go lighter than that. So that's how you get and look how beautiful that violet is. So from here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take that violet mixture that we made. I'm going to pull some over to here. I might even have to make a bit more here. That's nice about mixing it up in this certain area is you can have some left over. So I'm gonna take that violet and add some red to it. So I want a reddish violet, if that makes sense. I want it to be in between these two. So pushing that around, I can see that there is more red in there. Add a bit more. There we go. I think that's a good. It's not quite as dark. If it's not as dark as it should be, you can just add more colors here. You're only working with two colors, so if it's not, yellow violet enough, just add more violet. There we go. That looks nice and rich, nice and dark. Okay, take some water. See, I didn't use much water, just a dab, and then dry some of that off. Take a bit more water. It's actually a bit too light, so I'm going to put some more in here. There we go. I'm looking at, I don't think it's quite red enough, the thinner it gets. So I'll put a bit more red in there, I think. And pull out some of that color. So it's a little bit more translucent. Yeah. So and if it gets too dark, you can just dab it out. You can see there's not a whole lot of difference. I mean, there's a faint difference, but when you start painting, yeah, that could have been a little bit redder, but this is what this color chart helps you see. It's like, okay, it's not quite as red as that, it's still pretty dark. Yeah, there we go. Now you can kind of see the difference between them. Okay, good. So same with the blues. We're just going to use that same purple, just make it more blue. Get it nice and dark here. Got a touch of water. But it's not dark enough. So going back in, blue, touch of red. That's going to get us back to where we want to be. This is nice. It's kind of a lilac-y sort of violet. When you start to thin it down, it's really one of my favorite colors. So just adding some water. Yeah, you can really see how this red sort of, it's a magenta, so it leans a little bit towards purple anyway. So there's not a whole lot of variance between these, but this blue and the violet, you can really see a big difference there. All right. Okay, so that's that half, or third. I'm gonna jump over to our yellows. So here, same thing. Just grab your paint right out of the tube like this. See how stiff it is to work with? Like butter. Alright, there you can see what it is. Fresh out of the tube. Take a bit of water. This is a really beautiful yellow. It makes some really nice greens. You get some nice oranges out of this as well. There we go. You see, I mean, if you want to try that, you can. I just pulled out a bit of color each time, add a bit of water. It's a little tricky to get the hang of. But that's the other nice thing about this project is you're learning brushwork and how the paint works. All right, so now we're going to make our green. So same thing. Taking some yellow. Let's use this little tray here. If there's a little bit left in there, don't worry. You're using the colors, and it's going to kind of power it out because these are pretty strong colors. You won't even notice that bit of violet in there. So again, you're just using two colors, so you can kind of get a balance of where you need to be. So you want it to be in between blue and yellow. You can see how strong that blue is, kind of overpowers it. So you can just add a bit of green somewhere. And then once you can't tell if it's too much green or too much blue, like it's hard to tell right there. This probably isn't the best combination for greens. If you want really stark, lime green. But you'll find a lot of colors out in nature are this, somewhere along this vein here. To be fair, we see more greens than we see any other color. So there's a lot of greens out there. But this one I find to be a bit more natural than like some of the pre-made like Kelly greens and things. Those are pretty stark, pretty strong. But like I said, you could take like a phthalo blue and mix it up, and then you're going to get a much more much brighter green, much more vivid green, if that's what you're looking for. All right, so we got that kind of right in the middle there, sort of a balance. I'm going to take that same mixture and add a bit more blue because I want to be towards blue. I'll put it right here. And when you put it down, you can take a look at it and see if it's blue enough. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of variety in between these two. This is pretty blue, isn't it? So I might actually add a bit more blue just to balance it. Let's try that. And then we'll take a bit of water here. Yep, a bit more water. Just go down the line. I was going to start singing, but YouTube might pull my video for copyright infringement, so, well, or maybe I'll just pull it for my bad singing. You know what? I'm looking at this, and this is actually I think in between these two would be a more closer green. I think I went too yellow with this one. You can kind of see it is a bit more bluish. You can see there's blues in there, but this looks like a bit too yellow. So, you know, when you do yours, that's just something else to think about. And remember, this is just for learning. You know, this is when these are really handy is when you're looking at something and you're trying to figure out what the heck color it is, and you can't figure it out. These are good to look at. Yeah, see, that's almost the same as that. These are really good to look at and be like, okay, to get that color, I need, you know, I need sort of a bluish green. You know what I mean? They're really good for that. All right, well, I'm making this mistake so you don't have to. All right, yeah, this is almost, I guess it's not, yeah, that's really quite the same. Yeah, so I'm making this mistake. You don't have to. Yeah. And if it's too dark, you can just get some clean water and just sort of scrub that out a bit. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Good to know. All right. So next is going to be our orange. Right that here. Okay. So just the same as the others. Get some of the nice stiff paint. This is one of my favorite colors here. You know what? I'm looking at this and I'm going to use this. I already know that this is about the right shade. I'm going to pull it over here and use this right now. It looks a bit orangey, but it also makes a really good red. Even though we're using magenta, for some reason adding this bit of yellow really makes a nice red here. Just like this. Okay, yeah. All right. Now from there I can continue to add a bit of yellow to continue making my orange. So there's no like one way to do this. You know what I mean? There's several different ways to approach this. Okay. That's a good orange there. Maybe, hopefully. Might be the same color I just made. Can't quite tell in this light here. Let's see. It does look similar. Alright, I'm gonna add a bit more yellow here. There we go. That looks more orangey. Orange. Okay. All right. Get a bit of water. Look at that, very nice orange. Love this colors. Same thing. Just getting a bit of water. I like how vivid these colors turn out to be. Really quite pretty. If the color's too dark, just wipe your brush, add more water. All right, and finally, we're gonna just go with our straight, or almost yellow orange. Hopefully, it's gonna be. They're pretty close already. So to get it real more yellowy, it's not a big jump. So we'll see how this turns out here. It's actually looking pretty close to that, isn't it? I'll try and get it a bit yellower. Let's see. Yeah. Some of these changes can be pretty subtle. So don't worry if you're like, oh, it's not working. This is just, again, this is just for you to see. So all colors are going to be different. You got some cadmiums. Like if you use cadmiums in watercolor, they have an I love cadmiums, but they have a opacity to them, and they're not sometimes the best. But this is just your thing there. Next, we're going to do the secondaries. So that'll be next.